They found a restaurant with outdoor seating, sitting in the fashionably too small wrought iron chairs, and took the menus from a pompous waiter with his nose in the air. Kelkor took out a tiny pair of pince-nez reading glasses that he perched on his snout, and he peered down through them thoughtfully, making that down-curving smile again. Nodding, he grunted and snapped the menu shut. "That was fast," Flint said. "They have what I want." "Which is?" "Croque madame. I'll have mine with an ostrich egg." "I don't know if they have ostrich eggs." "For these prices, they damn well better." And of all the people that could have walked out of the restaurant door at that moment, El Fantasmo appeared, with a cappuccino in his white-gloved hand, pinky finger extended, his pencil-thin mustache tanned with frothed milk. Aramis looked up and stared, then tapped Flynn's elbow with the back of one hand. The Lemurian looked, eyebrows raised inquiringly, then turned to look up at the pirate beside him. Just as El Fantasmo looked down. With an oath, the pirate let his cappuccino fall, and he had snatched his rapier from its sheath before the coffee cup shattered in foam on the cobbles. Flynn was up and backing into the street with his chair in one hand as a ringmaster wards off a lion. "A sword!" he called to his friends. "I lost mine last night." Kelkor was up beside him without anyone seeing him rise. His broadsword hissed out of the baldric on his back, and his low growl made even the Spaniard swallow hard. Flynn murmured out of the side of his snout, "I can't lift that thing." "I'm not offering it to you, brother," Kelkor said, his eyes burning into the pirate's. "He's my enemy, not yours." "Fine, but I'll stand here till you find a sword you can lift." Aramis stood and unsheathed his own. The last pirates of El Fantasmo's crew came out of the restaurant door with ice cream on their noses and the last bits of waffle cones crunching in their mouths, chuckling at something one of them said. With startled curses they drew their cutlasses, but the captain stayed them, saying, "Keep back and make sure it's fair." And to Flynn, "Take your friend's sword and die. I'll give you a moment to get ready, but I don't have all day." Aramis came around the table and handed his sword to his new brother-in-arms, who swung it several times to accustom himself to its weight. It wasn't a great sword like the one he'd lost, but it was long and sharp, and it would do. He handed his chair to Kelkor, who carried it back to the table. Already a crowd was growing. Behind the two pirates, the diners inside had their noses pressed to the windows, fogging the glass with their breath. The pirate and the bandicoot circled warily into the street, rolling their shoulders, stretching their necks, shaking arms to loosen them. El Fantasmo said coldly, "I never would have thought my light wife would lie down with one of you." Flynn's eyes narrowed to slits. "She never got the chance." "Oh, no?" "No. You're not a jealous lover, then?" "My dearest wish is that I could have been." The pirate stopped a moment, thinking about what he had done, and Tiago bit his tongue. He had a feeling he could stop something at this moment, but that he shouldn't. Regret seemed to cloud the Spaniard's dark eyes, but only for an instant. He blinked it away as a lesser man would a tear, and the two of them assumed the guard position. Their rapiers crossed, and touched with a silvery clang to silence the chatter of the onlookers. The sound rang out in the crisp morning air. When it seemed the whole world had held its breath, the two sprang into action. If Flynn was fire, El Fantasmo was ice. Flynn bounded in to feint, sidestep, and lunge, trying to draw wide parries from his enemy to leave his midriff open, but the Spaniard kept his defense cool and calculating. He was less instinctive, more the thinking fighter, and his cold black eyes missed nothing. There were no sounds other than the ring and clash of steel, no hiss of breath, not even the scuffing of feet, for both moved with a grace almost ghost-like, and didn't seem to tire. The pirate parried with half-turns of his wrist while Flynn danced and struck with the play of summer lightning. While the spectators were amazed by the both of them, Valdor felt sure that Flynn would tire himself out before too long. Extravagant lunges and lusty swings would sap his strength and leave him open to one of El Fantasmo's viper-quick thrusts. The clash of blades brought the curious from blocks away, and when shutters opened at the windows above, people leaning on folded arms to watch. Around and around they went, Flynn a whirlwind and the pirate a coiled snake. Kelkor kept one eye on the duel and the other on the two pirates, watching for any sign of treachery, and they watched him. Even had they been looking, none would have seen the sudden vicious thrust that El Fantasmo made, his cool finally shaken. The bandicoot's taunting has drawn him out. Now the dance truly began, a dazzling hurricane of blades, the two bounding back and leaping in, a blinding blur of speed. The crowd responded to every daring move with cheers and gasps and shouts of advice, choosing their favorites and urging them on. The only spectator not staring with white-knuckled and wide-eyed anticipation was Tiago, who held something in one hand at the ready. Then, as the two swordsmen's breathtaking speed and fury seemed to reach a crescendo, all craned their necks forward to see which would make the fatal mistake. None dared to blink for fear of missing it, the plunge that would skewer one brave fighter on the sword of another. A shrill whistle rang out, shattering the moment, and people scattered like rabbits when the fox appears. The guard! It was the moment Tiago was waiting for. As soon as the duelists broke apart, the bounty hunter flung his pouch into the street between them. It burst, and a thick white smoke billowed out. It quickly enveloped the two and obscured them from view, giving them the chance to escape. He darted in to grab Flynn by the wrist and pull him out, before El Fantasma might take advantage and stab him blindly, and the four of them ran into the crowd. Shouldering people aside, they pushed their way to another street and ducked into a different cafe. In a city like Delcartes, duels were commonplace, but the Emperor General had tried to make them private affairs. They were for secluded areas at dawn, with seconds presiding, not a spectacle for the people to enjoy. He had struggled to raise the city from the barbarism to which it had sunk during the Revolution, when the torture and murder of innocents was so common in the naked light of day that it ceased to be horrible. Now any public fight was a thing of which to make a ruthless example. Laughing from the thrill of it, and the unspent adrenaline, the three congratulated Flynn on his fine show, but he was in no mood for their praise. He knew that he had given it all he had, and there was no chance of beating El Fantasma. If he had not been wounded in both shoulders the night before, things would have turned out differently. But it was a miracle that the fight had stopped, and the bitter knowledge of it made him hate the pirate all the more. Sorry. En tratando de ser calladas, estaban haciendo mucho ruido, pero está bien, me gusta mucho que ustedes trataron mi audiencia. Ladies and gentlemen, my audience.
Hola. Hola.
Right. Gracias.